How does a meat company turn its leftovers into one of the biggest brands in sports? Well, that's exactly what happened in Chicago during the 20th century. Today, we're unpacking the history of Wilson's Sporting Goods, how it started as a project to cut back on waste, transformed into a billion-dollar sports empire, and is now working to reimagine the future of sports. Welcome to FOS Explains. Thanks to Wilson's Sporting Goods for supporting this video. From the Civil War through the 1930s, Chicago, Illinois was the center of the United States meatpacking industry. At one point, over 80% of America's meat was coming out of the Windy City. One piece of that puzzle was a company named Sulzberger & Sons Co. In 1913, the company was determined to find unique ways to make use out of their leftover resources. So, they founded a new subsidiary called the Ashland Manufacturing Company. This was the start of Wilson's Sporting Goods. But they weren't actually called that until a few years later. That's when businessman Thomas E. Wilson took over. He eventually renamed the company after himself, the Thomas E. Wilson and Company. Wilson started off in 1914 making tennis racket strings, violin strings, surgical sutures, but they started focusing specifically on sporting goods, expanding into baseball shoes, tennis rackets, jerseys, and they honestly started creating some industry-changing products. In the early 1920s, they released the Ray Shock 507 catcher's mitt. The design, padding, and comfort made it the new gold standard for baseball gloves. By the 30s, they were making golf clubs like the R90 Sand Wedge and new wooden clubs that let players hit the ball farther and more accurately. Then, in the late 40s, they created the autographed Jack Kramer tennis racket. Kramer is seen as the father of modern tennis, and they sold more than 10 million autographed rackets over the next 30 years. These early innovations made Wilson so popular that it continued thriving even throughout the worst years of the Great Depression. And now, the brand is way bigger than I think you even realize. I know we've all seen a Wilson ball in one place or another, but I can almost guarantee you that you don't know how critical this brand is to the entire sports industry. It is everywhere. Wilson invited me out to their headquarters in Chicago, and I learned two things. One, seeing this many special balls from major sports leagues is really cool. And two, Wilson is a major part of so many major sports leagues. The NFL has used a Wilson football since 1941. So Wilson has been there for every pass, every run, and every touchdown celly in your lifetime. They became the official ball of the BAA in 1946. That was one of the OG leagues before the NBA. Then it became the official ball of the NBA for decades, and it took back over in 2021. Ooh, then there's the WNBA, the G League, Unrivaled, NCAA March Madness, and the Final Four. Heck, Wilson is even the official ball of the NBA 2K League. The brand is huge in tennis, too. Every point at the US Open has been scored with a Wilson tennis ball since 1978, and Wilson has been the official ball and stringer of Roland Garros since 2020. But it's not just leagues using Wilson balls. Some of the world's biggest athletes use Wilson products and partner with the company too. More than 25 current and former top tennis stars are Wilson partners, including Roger Federer, who worked with Wilson to create his own line of rackets last year. Athletes like Jamal Murray, Russell Wilson, Mookie Betts, and Juan Soto, they all rock with Wilson too. And I'm sure you've noticed how big of a surge women's sports is experiencing right now. In September 2024, WNBA attendance was up nearly 50% across the league, and ESPN viewership increased by 170% from the year before. Yeah, well, Wilson's right at the center of that too. They've been heavily investing in women's sports, adding WNBA stars to their athlete roster and teaming up with Caitlin Clark to drop her own signature basketball collection, a first for the Wilson Company since Jordan in the 80s. Each of Clark's collections sold out almost immediately, driving millions in sales for Wilson online and in person. But the coolest thing about Wilson might just be their 80+ year partnership with the NFL. Wilson has been producing leather footballs in the United States for more than 100 years. In 1941, Wilson unveiled the NFL's official football, the Duke. The ball was named in honor of New York Giants owner Wellington Mara. Wellington was a ball boy for the Giants growing up, and the players gave Mara the nickname the Duke. You know, because his name was Wellington. If you call him the Duke, it kind of sounds like the Duke of Wellington. You get the point. Wellington ended up being a great and really innovative NFL team owner. So in 1941, Chicago Bears owner George Halas suggested the league honor Wellington by naming its official game ball the Duke. Wilson gets a lot of publicity every year around the Super Bowl because they give people a glimpse into what goes into making their footballs. Every NFL football is made by hand inside Wilson's football factory in Ada, Ohio. The original football factory opened up in 1955 and lasted until last year when Wilson opened up a brand new $15 million facility right next door. The factory makes every NFL, Super Bowl, Pro Bowl game football, and every Wilson youth, high school, and college leather game football. Making an NFL football is a 20-step process involving over 250 stitches. About 50 sets of hands touch each Wilson football too, and every ball takes approximately 3 days to make. The Wilson Football Factory employs over 150 people, and at its peak capacity, the factory can produce up to 2,500 balls every day, or that's about 500,000 footballs in a year. And the week of the big game, Wilson gives fans a peek into the process in person by bringing a mini football factory on site to the Super Bowl festivities. But looking ahead, Wilson has a few more things in the works that might just top it. Wilson made a name for themselves off innovation, and they're not stopping anytime soon. Wilson Labs is what Wilson calls its center of excellence for innovation. Here, they continually strive to bring more technological advancements to the world of sports. Wilson Labs engineers and designers are constantly asking what if, trying to redefine what's possible, and they've come up with some really exciting stuff. In 2023, they pushed the boundaries by introducing a 3D airless basketball prototype at the NBA All-Star Dunk Contest. Just a year later, they officially released the Airless Gen 1 for sale, the first ever 3D printed basketball. The ball went viral, earning 4.5 billion total media impressions and 75 million views on social media. The official drop ended up selling out in under 2 hours. Since then, Wilson has teamed up with Off-White to release a co-branded collaboration airless basketball, which also sold out immediately. Overall, the company continues to push the boundaries and keeps expanding in new ways, including more collabs with off-court brands. There's the Tiffany & Co. x Wilson basketball, a Kith for Wilson fashion line, an OVO limited edition basketball and mini hoop set, and a luxury basketball collection with Louis Vuitton. Wilson has come a long way from being a side project at a meatpacking company. Now, they're a global sports powerhouse. So I'm curious, what's your favorite part about Wilson's rise, and what would you like to see them do next? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more on the business of sports.